Welcome to the latest episode of the asiCast. I am your host, John McCarthy, and I'm delighted today to be joined from New York by Tina Daniels and Josh Chasin from Aquila, a subsidiary of the ANA, the Association of National Advertisers. Welcome, Tina and Josh.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Now, thank you once again for taking the time. And this occasional podcast series, as you know, and our listeners know, enables us to surface some of the latest news and topics that are of interest to our international community beyond the in-person conference series that we run each year. And today we'll be taking a deep dive into Aquila as we enter 2026, which is an exciting time for the Aquila initiative. And over the course of this interview, we will be looking, shining a spotlight on Aquila with Tina and with Josh. So let's dive straight in. And maybe just to kind of kick us off, Tina, for those not familiar with Aquila, can you remind our listeners what it is and what's behind the name?
Oh, sure. Well, what it is a cross-media measurement platform that allows the largest marketers in the US to better understand deduplicated reach and frequency across large walled garden publishers and television. That is the base use case. The name I love. Its meaning is eagle in Latin, but Aquila is also a constellation, and it was the first constellation that astronomers used to measure distance. So I think it has a lot of symbolism for our company.
Okay. Well, I mean, you just go back then. You said it's a cross-media initiative, and you'll know that in our wider media industry, there is sometimes a crisis of definitions, many people have argued. So is it truly cross-media? I mean, how do you define that in the Aquila context?
Yeah, yes, it is. We have core platforms that are long time kind of invested in building Aquila, and those companies are Google, Meta, Amazon, and TikTok. And we work with Comscore to provide aggregated linear television data. So, just out of the gate, it truly is cross-media. But as you said, 2026 is going to be an exciting year for Aquila because we're working with additional partners to add streaming television data and audio. So that's in our roadmap for this year, and we're really hoping that we can add open web to that development platform this year as well.
Okay, so a roadmap definitely to go beyond multiple media forms, beyond the viewing media, if you like.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, turning to, obviously, you're in the United States, and it's well documented. There are many, many measurement solutions in the US. We featured a number of them in the ASI conferences over the years, and actually, they've been talked about well in previous episodes of the ASI cast. Now, each of those, certainly internationally, as we look at it, they seek to kind of differentiate themselves in the US market. Mm-hmm. Beyond being ANA owned, you refer to Aquila before as an independent foundational layer for cross-media measurement. What do you actually mean by that?
Yeah. Well, because we have the cooperation and investment of the biggest players in the industry, as I've mentioned, you mentioned the ANA, Google, Meta, Amazon, TikTok, Comscore. We're partners with the 4As, the MRC. We're really endeavoring to build an agnostic solution that will support the entire industry. We really hope that Aquila becomes a single source of truth that other measurement companies, other data suppliers can benefit from.
All right. So there is that willingness, that openness to collaborate on or to use the Aquila data for other measurement solutions in the market.
That's right. Our mission is to make sure everything is counted. We're not going to necessarily pass judgment on the counting. We'll leave it to agencies and marketers and others to do what they do best, which is to apply value to the impressions and make judgments about what's best for their client or their campaign. But we're in a nice position to level set, and because we have the cooperation of these players, we can look at impressions and make comparisons on an apple to apples basis.
Yeah, and if I may, I would add that the sort of crowded measurement marketplace so we know that we're talking about Nielsen and VideoAmp and ComScore and iSpot, and I would say that we don't look at those companies as competitors. We look at them as channel partners, and certainly ComScore is already a channel partner. And, I think we would be happy to have some of those other companies be channel partners as well.
Yeah, let's add Samba to the mix as well.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Good point.
Oh,
Well, so we're working with Samba. Tina let the news out here. I mean, it's been out, but we're working with Samba because we want to use them as we are using ComScore, but for streaming, because Samba has a lot of streaming data, and we want to be able to get. Ultimately, we want to have companies like, Disney with Hulu and Disney Plus, or Paramount with Paramount Plus. We want them to be direct partners, but between now and that day, working with Samba will let us sort of check the box of streaming platforms beyond the ones that we have already.
okay. Well, I mean, let's pick up those partnerships in a moment in terms of how they fit within the overall research design. Now, Tina, you said that we want to count everything. Well, obviously, in order to count it, we research is fundamental to that. So maybe we can turn to the research design. Now, you talked, Josh, about a number of different other measurement solutions in the market. Some of them in the United States have panels, others don't. Now, it's quite interesting because there's been growing conversations, growing interest in how panels are being built and maybe also how they're adopted, not least the role of panels, either currency first, as some call it, or you know currents or calibration for calibration. I mean, Josh, you'd actually talked about this on a panel session that we had in Venice in 2024. So Aquila's obviously commissioned Kantar Media to build and maintain a panel, and I think that started 2 years or so ago. So since you've been on stage in Venice, expressing your view on the role of panels, and now as the Chief Research Officer for Aquila, what have been the biggest achievements and maybe more critically the learnings for the panel that Aquila's commissioned?
Sure. A couple of things. One is that presumably at in Venice in 24, I said that due to the fragmentation and granularity in the way video is consumed, both um, the smaller rating size for actual programs and campaigns, but also, the multiplicity of devices on which you can watch video, that we simply can't use panels anymore to count things. That may be an America-centric perspective, but certainly here in the US, it's the case. And so, but panels remain indispensable because there are things that they tell us that we need to know. Um, the Aquila is an implementation of the CMM construct developed at the WFA, which calls for a uh, virtual ID construct where we have impressions at the impression level from our media partners. And the panel does two things. It calibrates, and often people talk about calibration first in this construct, but I think the more important thing is provides the deduplication, because fundamentally, the nature of the methodology is you get impression level data, or a census of impression level data from companies like Meta and Google, and then you deduplicate them by training this virtual ID model based on the observed duplication of the panel. So without the panel, this methodology can't really be executed. Then as far as calibration is concerned, so I'll just make it quick. So let's say So we accept the panel demography as truth because, and this is generally the case when you're in the course of recruitment, you actually talk to the people in the household. So you accept that the age and genders that they provide for you are correct. So let's suppose that 95% of the time that Facebook tells us a user is female 18 to 34, 18 to 24, let's say. Suppose 95% of the time that person is, according to the panel, a female 18 to 24, and the other 5% it's a male 18 to 24. So the panel lets us know that we have to account for the fact that 5% of the time the gender is switched. So that's the nature of how the calibration works. But really, the whole methodology is contingent on combining and deduplicating impression level data with the virtual ID model trained on the observed duplication in the panel. The one thing I do want to say about the panel is that we are blessed to have Kantar as our partner slash provider. They are a world-class provider of panels. Kantar builds panel. I mean, I don't know how many countries they have panels in, but I think they're in on the order of 55 countries in terms of providing some portion of the TV audience measurement solution. So, like I said, we are blessed to be able to work with Kantar.
2 years in, then, what are the? I mean, where do you stand? How large is the panel now? What's been the biggest learning of running and maintaining a calibration panel in that sense?
Well, two things. The panel is 3,500 households. It'll be 5,000 shortly. Um, and the, you know, I knew you were going to ask about that, and I wanted to say, oh, here's like this dramatic thing that we learned that we had no idea of before. But that's not really right. It's more like we had a general sense of how things were. And we've refined our understanding as we've moved forward, right? So so we've learned that there's I shouldn't say we've learned that there's turnover in a panel. We knew there would be, but now that we've been managing, or Cantor's been managing the panel, we have a sense of the nature of the turnover and how we have to make sure that we're recruiting to replace the turnover households. We've gotten a chance to see Kantar's, I guess I would say, the methodology that they typically syndicate around the world when they get chick business. We've had a chance to see how that works here in the U.S., and we're happy to see that it does. Respondent, recruitment and management. So I would say it's less that we learned things and more that we confirmed things.
Got it. And you said it's going to reach 5,000 households. When's that targeted for?
Do you want to say it, Tina?
Yeah, middle of this year.
Middle of this year.
Yeah.
Got it. So looking at, I mean, building on that panel, and I think Tina and yourself already kind of referenced this. You've got a number of EDPs or partners and publishers you're working with. I think you mentioned ComScore for linear and Samba for streaming. How do they work then alongside the Kantar panel?
So let me describe it like this, and this may or may not be an answer to your question, but it's certainly been helpful. So what do we get from a Meta or a Google? And I would characterize it as, by demographic, let's say by age, gender, cell, we get reach. Well, I mean, we get the actual impressions at the user level with, obfuscated with privacy and transparency. But for each of those cells, we get reach and what I call frequency distribution. So this is how many, according to Meta, the campaigns that are delivered through Meta, this is how many persons in each of those age gender cells were reached. But really it's how many of them were reached 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times, etc. Right? Now, that's been available from these walled garden companies. What hasn't been available is, okay, now I'm buying Meta, I'm buying Google, I'm buying Amazon, plus I got a bunch of linear TV. What does that look like for my whole campaign? and it has been difficult to combine. Frankly, the for a number of good reasons, the campaign delivery of the individual walled gardens or digital platforms with others and with other media. What this methodology does is by training a virtual ID, a vid model for each of our partners off the panel, what we are able to get as the output is now we've got reach and that same frequency distribution by age, gender, cell for the entire campaign, for all of the entities that were included, while still maintaining the numbers for the individual partners. So we, in our systems, can still offer to you the reach and frequency distribution or frequency by age, gender, cell for each of our partners, but the sort of like the innovation, the light bulb of Aquila and of Origin, to be fair, is that now we can also show you that for the whole campaign.
And in kind of adopting or implementing the integration between those platforms, those publishers and the panel, have there been any technical challenges along the way in terms of building that tagless first party based measurement system?
There is work that is required. There's a panel exchange where you use the phrase EDP, which might be a little inside baseball or inside cricket for the viewer, but that stands for Event Data Provider, and the events are impressions. So it's basically, these are entities that give us impressions. There's a panel exchange where they provide user level impressions to Kantar, and so we understand how they show up in the panel. And then Kantar constructs with the partner with Accenture a vid model for the media operator, and so they're able to use that to populate that with their impressions. This is very different from, I'm just going to tag the creative or whatever. It's a very different process, and it's what Meta and Google were pretty facile at this sort of thing, but other media operators that we're working with, it's kind of new to them. So I would just say the newness of the approach, I wouldn't say it's been a problem. It's just been, there's a learning curve.
Takes time. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, it takes time. Yeah.
I would jump in and say it definitely takes time to learn the process, but there's a fairly healthy investment that our publishing partners make through the work they do to validate our virtual ID model. So, it will be a surprise to no one who's listening that all of these publishers care very much about the accuracy of the data that's being reported. And part of the process is, allowing for several weeks of diligence to ensure that the virtual ID model that is applied to all Google impressions and all Meta impressions is meeting accuracy standards.
Yeah. So so Tina and Josh, you talked about Google. You said Meta, Samba, ComScore. What other partnerships are underway or in the pipeline? I think you mentioned TikTok and Amazon too.
TikTok and Amazon are also in the process of being integrated. I think probably many folks listening know that we have a sister company in the UK called Origin. Origin is also integrating these same media partners to start. I believe Amazon is imminently to be integrated into Origin, and TikTok soon to follow. And we'll be quick on the heels of Origin's integration plan. And much of that is due and thanks to the work that Accenture is doing for both companies. We have a unified Accenture team building the platform for both Origin and Aquila, and it's created a lot of strategic efficiency and cross-border learning. So we're super appreciative of that. Josh has mentioned Kantar Media several times. They too are working with Origin, so there's great synergy there. And, we've got sort of conversations going with several other potential media partners. I mentioned audio at the beginning. We have an initial agreement with iHeart to provide, digital and radio data into Aquila. We've got work to do as a consortium to figure out how the data will be translated, but we're very excited to work with iHeart and the Triton team there to figure that out. So
I think you mentioned open web as well.
yes,
Is on the roadmap. Yeah.
I think we're too soon to mention any specific players by name, but there are a couple of obvious ones, and we're really encouraged by the conversations that we're having with them.
Okay. Stay tuned on that front. Stay tuned.
A follow up.
I mean, let's turn then from what's to come to, I mean, imminently what is to come is obviously the data in itself, or to coin a term from I think it was KD at P&G, let the data flow. I mean, when people actually think about the catalyst for cross-media measurement, we often refer back, or many of us refer back to Mark Pritchard's landmark speech there at the IAB in January 2017, where he talked about the need to remove wastage for brands and more transparency from the platforms. Now, we're recording this just 1 year away from that speech being a decade old. So how far do you think we've come with initiatives like Aquila and Origin in the US and the UK?
Yeah, so the more things change, the more they stay the same. Your question reminds me a little bit of the mid 2000s, where for at least 10 years in a row, the industry predicted that this would be the year of mobile. And then it happened. And I think that we're really on that precipice now. I'd say the good news is a lot of hard work has been done to create the foundation that will make this a reality. And, maybe the good news, and I believe Mark agrees with this. He's been a terrific advisor over the years to us as the, just recently departed chair of the ANA board. That the media landscape has changed a lot. And so we're really better positioned to incorporate the platforms that are most meaningful to marketers.
Yeah. And I appreciate where your question's coming from. And I will say I've been involved with Aquila for, I guess, between 1 and 2 years. And in that time, I have felt I've been experienced an acceleration in the velocity. So there was a lot of work to do at the beginning, but now, we're moving faster and faster.
Yeah, I've been in a couple of conversations on panels and other things where folks in our partnership group will make the remark of like, oh, you guys are moving so fast. And, it's really heartening to hear that. But, for folks that have been around for a long time, it's a mixed bag. So this is our year, John.
This is your year. Well, with that in mind, I know that one of the things that started at the close of 2025 was some of the advertiser client trials, if you like, have already been underway. What value have the advertisers actually talked about so far in terms of Aquila meeting Mark's demand?
Yeah. Well, we had a really terrific trials program. 15 of the largest marketers in the US tested our platform, all household names. And as we were, reviewing reports with them and going through sort of insights that were derived, it was so heartening to hear marketers say things like, we can't get this data anywhere else. And that feedback was, validating and motivating for our team. Just to level set, the trials platform was limited to YouTube, Meta, and aggregated TV. So a subset of what, the ultimate Aquila platform will offer.
Right.
The goal really was just to make sure that the pipes worked and that marketers could see actual campaign data. But I would say, in answer to your question, there were 3 or 4 use cases that really showed up across the board. The first was just seeing, frequency across platforms, but also over the course of a campaign. It was really like eye-opening for marketers to see when frequency goals were met on each platform. And the other, of course, was contextualized reach. And, marketers get reach data back from each platform, but to see it in comparison was, really revelatory for some of our marketers. And then maybe more pedestrian was just the validation of impressions delivered versus what they planned across platforms, audiences, and campaigns. It was a little bit surprising to me that was cited as so useful, but in fact, I think it is, we are a trusted source of information, and that was a kind of a helpful data point for marketers. The other thing that I'd say was an insight is that marketers realized, as our team was meeting with them over the course of the trials, that Aquila would be a very helpful platform, not just for post-campaign analysis, but also for live mid-campaign media evaluation. So, the trials program was designed to be a very limited kind of value proposition. It's a fairly blunt instrument, but the goal was just to get the thing live and make sure it worked. And now that we have that underway, we're excited to add more platforms, add different demo slicing and features, and really see what's possible with Aquila.
Okay. Well, we'll come on to looking at a view to 2026, and hopefully we can invite you to share some data later in the year.
Yes.
Great to see some actual.
You know what? On that point, yes, John, we'll take you up on that. And I do just want to say, our marketers that are involved all know this, but we were very careful in the trials program to say this is not data that marketers should be using to make decisions right now. It's there's still more work to do. We have advanced virtual IDs that we're going to roll out. So we have a quality data label on our platform now, and we want to be really thoughtful before we say this is like ready for prime time.
Yeah, that's why they call it a trial.
Yeah, no, understood. Obviously, United States, the largest, advertising market in the world. How do you see Aquila, the Aquila initiative, influencing, global cross media, but by definition of how we kicked off this call? How do you see it influencing, global cross media measurement standards?
Well, maybe this will sound like a very un-American statement, but our intent is to follow and not influence.
Okay. Anyone in particular?
Well, it's our job to comply with standards, right? So, and as I think much of your audience will know, the MRC is an important component of the audience measurement space in the United States, and we've been working with the MRC. Now, I don't want to create the impression we've been doing an audit. It's been premature for that, but we have been working regularly with the MRC as we design systems and methods so that, and they've been kind enough to serve as consultants for us, really, so that when it is time to enter into an audit, we will have taken their input into account through all the design phases. And having been through MRC audits in the past, there's like 1,100 pages of standards, depending on what it is you're doing. So we're up to our noses in standards compliance. We're not really looking to set new ones.
Okay. You referenced the MRC, and in fact, George spoke at the November conference in Copenhagen, where I know that one of the areas they're also looking at beyond cross media is AI.
Yep.
And of course, AI and robotics were all the talk of the CES there in Vegas earlier this year. So with I suppose, a view to the future or the near term, and I know Tina, you were there in Vegas. You may be aware that some of the TV networks there are working hard to reposition their own tools to tighten the link between advertising, data, and outcomes. Indeed, when we're recording this, Disney have just announced here overnight a partnership with Audience Project. So, I mean, with momentum of first-party data only growing amongst the TV networks, and with your view that Aquila is a foundational data layer, what does that mean for initiatives like Aquila in terms of where they sit in terms of usage by the networks?
Can I offer a thought on that, Tina? Because
Sure.
I'm sort of passionate about this particular point. The There has been some pushback from traditional TV companies about approaches like this, but here's the thing. When we talk about first-party data, really, let's face it, viewing is migrating from linear TV to streaming. Companies like Paramount have Paramount Plus, and Time Warner, the potential transaction notwithstanding, has HBO or HBO Max. NBCU has Peacock. Disney has Hulu and Disney Channel, right? So the future of these television companies is in streaming, which means they are digital distributors of impressions. They have first-party data on the impressions that they distribute, and it makes a service like Aquila the place their puck is going. That's a hockey reference. You can say the place on the pitch where the ball is going, if we want to talk soccer or football. But basically, I think that the direction that the television business is going is towards digital, and the Aquila methodology and approach is very much built for today and tomorrow.
Okay, well, let me take that ice hockey analogy then, and quote Wayne Gretzky in terms of skating where the puck is going to be.
Yeah.
There we go. Are you impressed? An Irishman knows a.
I am,
There you go.
and I will also tell you that one of the highlights of my work career in 1999, I got a memo and Wayne Gretzky was copied on it. So.
Yeah.
Well, you're one up on me there, Josh. Well, I mean, skating to where the puck is going to be, or to mix analogies, looking at where the eagle's going to land. Looking ahead to November this year, the global media measurement industry will be descending on the beautiful city of Venice. Where will Aquila be by then?
I plan to be in Venice.
Okay, and Aquila?
I think it's fair to say that Aquila will be entering into the general availability stage. By then, we will have finished our panel build, the target being 5,000 households. I expect that we'll have integrated TikTok, Amazon, Samba TV. We'll be hopefully very close on audio. We'll have announced other partners. But more importantly, we'll be serving our marketers, and we'll have many dozens of marketers actively using the platform to analyze campaigns.
Great. I mean, beyond the partnerships, I think the data will be great to see some of that coming to life and how they're actually applying that. I suppose to close our discussion, it's been a fascinating time with you both. As you know, the asiCast is listened to by members of the research, TV and media community across the globe. If you could begin Aquila from scratch all over again, what would you do differently?
It's such a hard question. I mean, I'm just going to say, I'm not sure we could get it done today if we were starting from scratch, but potentially. But I think some things I would think about are the rapidly changing expectations of marketers. It's a human nature that we get really excited about something and then quickly adjust to it and want the next thing. So we're already, starting to hear from some marketers about a desire for how Aquila can help evaluate outcomes. We didn't really talk about it in this conversation, but we are working to ensure that our API can be fed into MMM models. And so I think the MMM providers will be another important area of partnership for us. So I might have thought a little more about, to the hockey analogy, where the puck was really going. The legal lift is not small. I might have thought a little bit more about how we were going to approach all of the legal contracting and the governance models and how those complexities might impact the business. We probably would have hired people a little more quickly to get ahead of things. I ended 2025 feeling incredibly proud. I think, at the beginning of 2025, if you had predicted, where Aquila would be, we surpassed that by all estimations. But, naturally now in 2026 feels a little bit like a false summit. The mountain of 2026 is much bigger. So maybe going into the whole thing with just the understanding that patience, persistence, and resilience would be, the things that everyone involved needs most.
Okay. Well, I mean, you a bit of a teaser there. You talked about outcomes, and on this, it was great in this first in-depth podcast on Aquila for ASI to cover kind of table stakes, if you like, for much of the work you've been doing. But there is a episode coming soon from ASI on outcomes, and maybe we could feature Aquila on that as your story develops.
Yeah,
What about
potentially.
Josh, yourself, anything?
Yeah. I thought Tina did such a lovely job of wrapping up that I hate to go again. But and I even said to myself, I'm only going to say something if he directly asks me. But yeah, so I'm going to say this, that Aquila, yes, Tina mentioned that Origin in the UK is our sister company, and the prospect exists that we will have more sister companies in additional countries. And we want to work. So we started out knowing that we had to work to some extent in tandem with Origin because we share resources. We both work with Accenture. We both work with Cantor. We both work with Halo, which is the WFA entity. So obviously we don't want to have, let's say, Halo to have to build a thing twice in two different ways. So we work closely together. Conversely, we also operate in different marketplaces. And so I think that we have to sort of navigate how much we work in concert with Origin and at what places we have to service the market we're in, which might require somewhat different solution than Origin. And so I would just say, like looking back, I feel like we've got a handle on that now, but maybe we would have been nice if we just sort of sussed that out a little earlier.
Okay. Well, all it leaves really for me to say is thank you very much for your time. Congratulations on the achievements thus far. Thank you for your openness to sharing your experiences and thus far, and excited about the journey ahead and looking forward to the Eagle landing in due course in 2026. Thanks,
Thank you,
Tina.
John.
Thank you, Josh.
I really appreciate
Thank
your
you.
support.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.